Regardless, with that being said, I would be comfortable with overtime, shaving that maybe $5,000. For me, that seems reasonable, but there are two other things I want us to think about. One is with payroll, she does an analysis. I wouldn't want to jeopardize it too much there. Overtime seems, I see what Council President is saying. That makes sense to me as well. Now we have a 16th officer who came on about halfway through last year. Now we'll be on this year, full year. I think scaling it back up to 5,000 would be something I'd be comfortable with. But I'd rather not touch the other payroll that our CFO does the analysis on. The other point that I wanted to make has escaped me, I think, but I'm sure I'll come up with it and talk about that too. But,
also, I would say that's great, just following up on Councilwoman Tedesco's comment. That was the other thing too, and I was very happy that Councilman Yearstead opened up the discussion with this by saying they weren't going to support the budget. I thought to me it was going to be a complete waste of time because there's been no changes made based on suggestions of councilpersons the last 3 years from when the budget's been introduced at a special meeting to when it's been really introduced. So I expected this to be, I wasn't really going to say much of anything because none of our comments are really taken into account. If you actually did a $5,000 cut in response to Councilman Yearstead's query, that would be kind of earth-shattering, and I would totally support that.
Can I interject? I'm not sure as to what date this paid in charge comes through. I ran a report before the meeting today, and in actuality, the paid in charge is not $1,408,000, it's $1,422,000.
I'm sorry, I don't view those numbers. We don't view those numbers.
I don't know, 6.
We have paid is 1,693.
you may have that just for payroll, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm looking at the individual lines.
Right, well, we're just looking at the total salary.
The overtime, they spent about 47.
Oh, so they did spend closer to it.
Yeah.
Closer to that 50.
Dispatchers were at 137. So the overall spending in that line was $1,719,000. So it's significantly higher.
Yeah, it's
than-
$1,718,510.
Yeah.
So you can.
So it's off about 20,000,
Right.
and that's, you
That's
know.
awful good. That's awful good. But I would support Councilwoman Tedesco's comment to at least reduce the overtime by 5,000.
Well, here's my only issue with taking, I put forth that suggestion. Now she's saying we actually spent 47,000 last year as opposed to 50. So
But we have the full.
we do have the full, this is true, but then again, let's see, in 12, do we have the 16th officer? I don't think we did.
If you build it, they will come. If you have it, they will spend it.
It's interesting thought.
I would be perfectly fine with reducing it by 5,000.
I agree.
And
I agree.
Jim, we have done that once before on council during a budget introduction, and we have reduced. Actually, that line item, we actually reduced by 5,000 when it was introduced.
Well, you gotta remind me of that, because I don't remember that at all.
I actually sat in this seat, and I think you sat over there.
Yes.
And
So
you
remind me of that one, because that's a new one.
Right, and I
We have
distinctly
that
remember.
before. And that's why we're doing this now. We're not saying this is it, we're bringing up everybody.
Absolutely.
Wherever we can
But
cut.
then that's a departure from the past.
I
That is
don't,
a departure.
I don't believe it is a departure
Well,
because.
continue on.
Is that,
Well,
one
we understand.
one technical question on this, Cindy? The co-pays for the, obviously, our biggest department, our biggest salary and wage expense is law enforcement, okay? And the biggest impact of the Christie healthcare and pension reforms comes from that line item. This increase, this salary line item is pre-deductions for healthcare and pension? Or is this net?
If you're looking at police salary, it's their salary. And then the co-pays are applied against our insurance line.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so this is the gross,
Yes.
and then it comes back, and there you go. And that's when, I know in the first couple of budget sheets, they actually spec out what the, what paid for
On
the
that
pension co-pays.
early,
and,
in
you
the
know.
actual budget.
Yeah, and again, I think that's actually a very important thing to point out, is that, we are really getting lucky, or actually realizing a lot of savings, because a lot of our employees now are picking up more costs for their own pension and health care. And I think that's important, that needs to be disclosed, the public needs to know.
I think last year it was $124,000.
And that's been a straight line going up.
I've got analysis on there.
Can we stick to police for a little bit?
You know.
Yeah.
Or-
Answer the question.
Police paid $84,000 towards their health care.
Are they paid?
Yeah.
Are they fully phased in?
Yes, the only one, the DPW is still in tier 3, so at the end of this year, they'll move to tier 4. Everybody else is in tier 4, fully phased in.
Including non-union?
Yes.
Okay, well,
They
so
were the first ones.
our biggest department are non-union is now in, and we're just waiting for our next biggest department. That's good news.
Mhm.
Yeah, the non-union pay approximately $44,000 for its benefits, and DPW is around 22.
Okay, so again, and I think that needs, that point needs to be made, that, you know, what our employees are quote unquote getting paid here is not really exactly what they're getting paid, because you gotta reduce that.
Right.
Mhm.
Last question, Councilman?
I just wanted to touch on police other expenses. I know that Councilman Petrozelli pointed out $7,500 for signs for permit parking, but I also wanted to just share a couple of the reasons the chief of police brought to us for increases. The main one is his service contracts are going up, and so that was quite a number of thousand. That's like up $10,000 over last year.
What are those for?
Let me see. Basically computers, their programs, their, I don't know, Tina, did you answer that one? Their, all their exact things.
Yeah, it's like the maintenance contract on, all like the fertilizer machines, their, all their kind of equipment, like their software. They have a lot of software packages, like.
Right, Beast, evidence software,
Yes, they have all kinds of software
911
packages.
software.
Like in our office, we only have a couple. Those vendors, they get you on the maintenance agreement versus the cost of the software. They really get you on the maintenance agreement.
And-
What about
and
ammunition?
Ammunition, let me see if that one actually went up, because it's been going up, but this year it was able to stay flat, but they spent every single dollar of it last year.
Yeah, I mean, last year they spent 3,400 and it's budgeted at 3,500.
And they get a discount, a law enforcement discount, but the price of ammunition has
Right.
skyrocketed. If I owned a guns and ammo store, I would have voted for Barack Obama's place. It's been a boom to the ammunition industry, and the prices have actually gone up.
And also too, I mean,
Voted for it.
as far as, you know, the other expenses, I mean, the chief also had, oil changes. He's going to the full synthetic rather than regular. I mean, these are all little things that are starting to add up on him. And, the price of tires is, slowly going up as well.
Another item in the news, a lot, I'm sure you've seen, about the body cameras, that's coming out of the state as a mandate. So basically, they're like $1,000 each, we would need 5 of them, which is a cheaper option than the car cameras, would have gone $5,600 each. So fortunately, we don't have to get those, but body cameras at $1,000 each, that's $5,000 too. So, I mean, I'm, of course, upset to see that raised to up $16,000, but it's important to talk about why that's happening too.
Being that we're in arbitration now and we have to pay the legal fees, where do you have that worked in here?
That's not legal, it's illegal.
Legal.
That's illegal, okay.
We'll continue.
All right,
We'll continue on, Councilman.
Sure.
Page 2.
Okay. Prosecutor. We really have just other expenses there that has gone up.
So the top line staying the same? Yeah, I don't understand this.
He doesn't get
He's
his
not
salary, he's a
salary, they don't
contract.
So that
He's
The
a
line
contract
just, the
employee.
line just moved.
used to be in a
But it is,
Oh.
That changed years ago.
So salary, okay.
Last
And
year.
I thought he got a stipend, but you're just saying, yeah, because everything is either salary or wages or other. I got you. Okay.
and that is based on the contract.
And you got your streets and roads. They're actually asking for an extra 10,000 right there for salary and wage and other expenses. It was, they spent 80 and now they requested 80 again.
Right, so we were able to reduce it as a line item, if you put computer maintenance aside, since it's now pulled out, $4,400, so substantial reduction there.
Fire department, salary and wage stayed the same. Other expenses, last year they had 63,650, so we're down, now 62,350.
But if we can speak about fire, just to explain to everyone why we didn't decide to go further. They have some, let's see here. They need to continue to upgrade their computer system. They're about halfway there. They now need to do it in their trucks, hydrant locations, and it's for resident communication information. Let's see, they have to do their tests, basically pagers. They need 6 more this year. They're almost $400 a piece. That's $2,400. They can't get parts on the old ones, so there's no point in fixing them anymore. They just go with new. So those were a couple of reasons the chief cited as reasons why his department should stay flat. So we took that and then we did reduce it a little bit where we felt it would be appropriate.
Okay, recreation, there's an increase in salary and wage due to the increase in minimum wage. And the other expenses is increased by maybe $1,300 because they're gonna do an extra $1,000 in summer programs this year.
So they're up $650 net.
Right. Board of Health, we don't really have any say on that one, fortunately. Shade Tree, if you guys wanted to take it down, that 6,000, that's for you guys.
I hate to say it, but yeah.
I'm gonna actually disagree, and
Jim.
My brother from the left, and I get giddy. I get giddy the way I feel when my wife has to wait for me. When I advocate a spending increase, it's so rare that I get giddy. Just from my experience here, that shade tree maintenance, is deferring it is just creating a bigger problem down the road. That's my opinion. Do I feel very strongly about it? No, I'm leaning toward your increase. If the committee goes with Councilman Gearstop's suggestion or part of his suggestion, I'd be okay with that too. But just my 2 cents on it, keep it in there or raise it a bit.
The only reason I'm saying it is because, heck, I've climbed trees, I've maintained trees. I agree with Tina 100% that a lot more can be done in-house. And I don't think we necessarily have to put this, out of house. I don't think we have to do contracting if we do. I'll phrase it that way. I think we can do more in-house.
Then that's a different.
The only problem with in-house is that if we were to make that determination, that takes time. There's a process for that.
What do you mean?
If you're saying we're going to do it in-house, I'm assuming that you would support capital item purchase.
No, not there yet. Even without capital.
No?
I mean, you know,
So without the bucket truck, they can
as
maintain it?
well as actually yes, as Tina knows, I've taken out permits myself to trim neighbors' trees. And so I've done that without a bucket truck, and I've done that with pole saw, and so yes, you can.
Interesting. Well,
Trees are
okay,
the trees are next door to my house, I could take
Council
down
President.
tomorrow, we don't need to have a
They can
contractor
take
do
them
it.
down, they can't trim them.
Oh, I'm saying they can. I've done it.
Yeah, but I mean.
All I'm saying is, I don't think we have to go out. I think
If
we
you stand on
cut
a
this.
milk crate and cut the tree down, that's
No.
great, but
I didn't do
our
that.
staff can't do that.
Does council have a consensus on this?
Councilman
Doesn't cut
Palmer, what do you, Palmer, whoops, sorry. Sorry.
Tarantino.
I don't know
Councilwoman
about so much
Tarantino.
keeping it in-house, but I would not cut the line item if you think you can get contractors to do, but are you saying you're having problems doing that?
Oh, no, I have a contract, he's just expensive. I mean,
Because work needs to be done, I do think that we have a problem.
yeah,
with
we went out for bid and I awarded a contract, so I have a contractor on contract. But it's expensive, I mean, he was cheapest of the bids, but it's just an expensive thing, like, the contract goes in, like, if I tell him take down a tree, I go out and I measure the size, so that's how it's bidded. So if it goes by the circumference of the tree, so depending on that size, it could be $1,800 to take down one tree.
I mean,
It's a lot of money.
for me, you guys have
That's
to
5
realize
trees,
this is
you
where
didn't have,
I'm
I'm done, my budget's wiped out.
coming from with this. I mean, no matter what, you're gonna have to spend money to deal with these trees.
See-
Whether you increase it by 6,000, get your own bucket truck, try to get a 100-foot bucket truck that could actually do some trimming,
You're
or
not
maybe
gonna do
take
that.
down our own trees, but then your guys actually have to be certified in order to do all this stuff.
Pete
too.
is.
No, he's not.
He's certified to do the lower stuff. Nobody's done that
You can't
100
go by
foot
the
bucket
wires.
truck. Right, but nobody can do
Yes,
that.
you can, if you're certified, you can.
Understood, but nobody's going to do that because you have to go through the whole PSC&G program. I would,
No, you
I would,
don't. I hired a contractor, he goes in the
yeah,
wires.
they have to do it.
He's
Somebody,
got some kind of certification
Right.
for cutting the wires.
he's already done it. Somebody has to do it, is what I'm saying. That
All right, I'm
person, whether you
saying
hired
leave
an
it in
in-house
and
or out, they have
Okay,
to do
we
it.
have to make a decision here for $6,000.
I would recommend cutting it down to 20 from the 24.5.
20, what?
20.
Not even that.
The requested is 24.5, and I'm saying I would ask that we cut it down to 20.
The other part of that is, you know, I always say this to everybody, trees are like hair. You give me like $30,000 one year and you think I'm never gonna come back for money. They grow constantly, they have to be constantly maintained. I think that our whole tree maintenance program needs to be improved overall.
Do we have another suggestion other than 20,000?
I'm saying leave it.
I think we should leave it, so.
Councilman Picciselli?
I'd rather leave it, because there is work that has to get done there.
Yeah.
Councilman Matthews?
Add me to that,
Councilman?
consensus.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm inclined to leave it at this point. We still have a second meeting, we could always think about it, but I know that this is something
Okay.
that this office gets a lot of complaints about, so I don't wanna
Yes,
impede
yes.
services, so.
I have people that are, you know, when I make a determination on a tree, I notify them. I say you're added to the next round of work, because I can't even say when that is anymore.
We have a consensus, let's continue, please.
Okay. Planning board, I think we're done with that
Yeah, I'll
one.
discuss that with Steve. I'm gonna try to get that traffic study out of there.
Okay. COA,
Did we talk about that money in our meetings? Is it still in there? That's what-
No, it's at 0,
Oh, okay.
because she told us we
Yes,
could, right?
yes.
I
just wanted
thought
to-
we had to hire somebody.
No,
That was last year.
I,
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I talked to the color lady, the jail
Yes.
person,
Yes.
about that, 'cause that was been buzzing around.
Mhm.
And she said that for this year, it's not gonna cost us anything. Well, there's a few things that she's gonna do, I have to do one thing,
Okay.
but next year, you will have to, I don't wanna say hire someone, but someone will have to be
Well, shared
responsible.
service, hopefully.
It has to be, it has to be a drug, it has to be an employee of this municipality, just let me tell you that right now. That has to be one,
Okay.
and
An existing employee of this municipality, okay.
Has to.
Very fine.
Okay. We'll talk
or,
about that.
it has to be an employee of this municipality.
016 we'll worry about then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fire
This year, don't
prevention?
worry about it.
fire prevention is flat from last year.
Thank you.
Also, with fire prevention, although you see that there's not as much charge, we really have limited control over that budget as he's entitled to basically spend what he's able to generate as a revenue, so everyone's clear.
Can I ask a question? I want to jump ahead because I do have some revenue questions later on. Now, fire prevention, Lou, you may know more than I in this area. Obviously, the fire, the fire official has to go out and do inspections during the year. What do we charge for those inspections? When's the last time we increased that charge? Is it time to increase that charge?
Sandy, what's the fee on that, 35?
I think it is, but I think it's also set by the code.
But we can amend the code.
No, I think it's like
State
a,
code?
Yeah,
the code, yeah.
Can we check that, because that's one of the things I did spend some time on in terms of revenue. I don't know when, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but in terms of, you know, we went over Board of Health. I actually expect, and I don't know if we will benefit by that, but you know, I mentioned in one of the past meetings, we will charge for plan reviews. Well, we're gonna start charging for plan reviews. And I don't know if any of that money comes to the borough, but it'll go to the Board of Health budget, hopefully it'll help in the future.
Okay.
So, I mean, Sandy, can you check to see if
I
we
don't have it
could?
with me.
No, I don't mean now, I don't mean now.
I printed something out that when I was looking into this.
Yeah, if you could just check to see if we could increase the fire official, fire prevention charges, fees.
Okay.
If we can, that'd be appreciated.
You just keep in mind that that is then dedicated to that line item, and Mr. Toth gave me the statute for that, actually. And then I think if he doesn't spend it within 2 or 3 years, it gets forfeited to the borough.
I believe it's 2.
2 years, right? So it gets segregated and then gets forfeited to the borough, so.
All right, we appreciate that, Sandy, thank you.
Okay, your next line is the insurance, O&E. That is what it is. Then workers' comp, we don't really have any control over that. Group insurance, employees,
That's the one we discussed earlier.
yeah.
Well, I actually have a question on that. Sandy, I remember I talked to you about this. You said it was a 7% increase, right, that came in from the state?
Yeah, that's what I found online, like,
Okay.
So it's 7.2.
7%, so then is this 981 that's in there after the employees compensate, the employee
Yeah, that's
co-pays?
net.
All right, so again, I mean, we're almost flatlining, I mean, not against what we have to actually spend, but even the top line, we're almost flatlining
Well,
from
you're
the
seeing
healthcare.
that number, but there's a few different components in there. There's the active employees who are
And then the retired.
contributing, and then you have a large chunk of it that's retirees that don't contribute. So they continue to go up every year without an offset. Then there's also dental and,
Let me ask you this, if you're a new retiree, do you have to do co-pays? If you just retired, like say a month ago?
No. If you, all the people who have left this municipality don't have to pay. The last person that is the chief. After him, every retiree will contribute. So when the
Okay.
governor set the law in place, if you had 20 years of service or more, you didn't have to pay. So at that time, he made the law, there were, the people that just retired since recently don't have to pay, including the chief, because he meets that criteria. He's the last employee of this municipality that meets that criteria.
That's very
Wait a minute, I take that back, I'm sorry, there's employees in the street department that meets that criteria. as well.
Okay.
Quite a few.
Right.
But it's being phased out is the point.
Yes,
Right.
yes, and once we realize contributions from retiree healthcare, that will offset your budgets a lot. And I don't know how the state does that, because it doesn't affect us, I don't know that how does the retiree, they take it out of
Out of
his
pension
pension, and
or-
how does it get back to you, does it reduce your cost? So I don't really know how that works, but someday we'll find out.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. So anyway, I just wanted to point out, that's a huge bullet that we dodged again. I think that's, and again, being picked up by our employees and soon by our retirees.
Okay.
Office of Emergency Management.
Could I take that one, Council? Thanks, sorry. Well, there is a bit of a change, actually. I know it's not that much money, but I think it's valuable to talk about, since you see a lot of zeros on this line. Basically, in other expenses, 375 was always budgeted. Last year, it really wasn't cut 300. It was transferred out to cover a sewer problem that had come up. And so that's why it's not, it looks like an increase, but it's not really. We actually cut it by $75 for dues. Since they hadn't been paid out in 3 years, we figured might as well take 75 out. So literally, when we look at every dollar, we do. So that's my only.
We have a new coordinator, so.
Yes, that's why we left 300, even though it hadn't really been spent in the past
So
years.
does he need the dues or not?
The
We'll
other
map, I will
expenses.
talk about it in this year's budget.
Okay. Next year. All right, fire hydrant service, that's 59,000. It's exactly the same. Contingent. We dropped that down, 2,000 from last year, which was 2,000. Election is what it is. Engineering. Didn't we actually reduce this when we started?
Yes,
on engineering?
4,000.
Yeah,
it looks the same.
no, in our worksheet.
The other expenses in 2014 to.
Oh, okay, the other expenses, okay, sorry.
Right.
Okay, legal, this is where your question, Ann,
Okay,
okay? This is where we appropriated money for PBA matters, legal other matters, legal fees, and salary.
So that, and I know you're saying that it's an actual $5,000 budget reduction from 2014, but in terms of what we anticipate spending, it's an increase based upon the PBA negotiations, the arbitration, and all those fees.
Right.
Right.
There's an
Okay.
additional 10,000 for legal PBA matters.
All right, senior citizens.
so
Okay.
why'd you cut my senior citizens?
We did.
It
cut the
is
senior
increased by
citizens.
5.
Remember-
Other expenses, from 9,100 to 4,100.
That's because we took the money
Remember
from the
the change we
salary.
did with the salary?
Director's salary.
That's, well,
And
okay.
put
so
it
that-
back into, we're using the grant money now, more of the grant money to.
Okay, because the salary is the same, but on other, it's down 5,000.
Okay, first of all, it's not only the senior citizen director's salary in there, it's other people's salaries as well. Bus drivers, handyman,
Handyman,
lead
lead
kids.
Right, leaf kids. Leaf kids.
Sandy, do you wanna explain?
But
Listen to
that's,
Sandy, she'll
but that's
explain
not
it.
the salary
Sandy
line.
will explain it, go
Okay,
ahead.
so the bulk of this program is run through the grant, which this, and the grant cycle's a little odd. It goes September 1 through August 31. So the grant for senior citizen director and the programs is $13,250. Per salary of $5,000 is coming from the grant, and the balance, the $8,000 change, is going towards the programs. So the salary that you're looking at here that we're raising in the current budget is to supplement the changeover in that position, you know, the salary change, plus to pay the bus drivers and the handyman and the lead kids. So that's what you're seeing here in this line, not necessarily the senior director's salary. Explanation.
I'm not sure I'm there.
I'm
Are
not
you there?
gonna-
I'm not
no,
there yet.
Only
I'm
because
sorry.
the salary line is the same, but what's being reduced is under other expenses.
Because in the past, before we changed how we funded the programs, we had to raise an additional $5,000. We don't have to raise that money anymore because
Because of her salary.
there's more money in the grant because of the change in her salary.
Right, more money
But
from the
All
grant
right,
is going to programs than to salary.
All right, that I understand. Thank
Good.
you.
Want to
So
say
the-
that easier,
so-
Sandy?
For clarity, there are no cut to senior services, just because you look at a couple
Yes,
numbers.
that-
Just so
that
we're all on the
makes
same page,
sense to
good.
me.
Okay.
And the other thing too is that where we centralize the computerized data, that's out of there as well. So we took that money out and put it somewhere else.
Continue on, please.
Oh, there we are, computerized data, there you go. That's everything pulled out from every department. Okay, public celebrations is flat from last year. Snow removal, that's down from 2014. Utilities, we chopped that by 3,000 because we budgeted 48 last year, only spent 42. Telephone, we chopped that by 1,000, and we spent 21,938.
I'm gonna go back, because the past three, you know, it really scares me when Jim and I are on the same page. It really does scare me, okay? So, you know, I know you say it's a reduction, and I understand what you're saying, okay? Let's just take utilities, 48 to 45. We only spent 42 last year. So why are we going up 3?
Surplus.
No, and Jim, I wasn't gonna get into your argument with you before. It's not, the reason is surplus.
You want a real answer, or you want something else? It's balance of payments.
All right, well, I won't get into that, but let me, I understand what you're saying, Lou, and I don't disagree with you. You're saying going from 48 budget to 45 budget, going from 25 budget telephone to 24 budget, going from 22 budget to 17. But if we didn't spend that amount last year, why are we increasing it?
Councilman, I'd like to make a
Yeah.
couple of points. I
Sure.
understand your line of thinking, makes sense,
That's good.
it's why we ask the questions that we ask at finance meetings too. Couple of thoughts. One is from the budget seminar, the CFO of Milburn said basically, you know, he understands where we sit as elected officials, but he did say, you know, there needs to be a little bit of flexibility. With that said, I don't mean a lot at all. And the fact that we've used 97% of our budget for 2 years in a row, I don't know what it was before that off the top of my head, but for the past 2 years, we're being responsible. These are tight budgets. But as Councilman Sluka from a few years ago used to say, you go at the budget with a scalpel rather than a hand axe or something like that, or axe, something like that, he said. But I remember the scalpel line, and so that's my theory with that.
Can I stop you for a second?
Those were my
Sandy,
own points.
this line of thinking may be totally convoluted, all right, but we spent 97%, that's great. That means 3% wasn't spent. Okay, does that 3% go to surplus?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
2
what,
years.
so what Councilman Matthew was saying that is accurate, roughly. I'm not saying any, you know, we're not on the same page on any, 100%, but roughly.
It's not a
So-
political statement.
No, it's not.
It's a
Right,
fact.
and
Right.
so let me go back a second, okay? So if there is one place that I always complain about, okay, people yell about taxes, but yet people don't yell when, half a gallon of ice cream is not a half a gallon of ice cream, but it costs the same. Half a gallon of orange juice is not a half a gallon of orange juice, but it costs the same. Consumers seem to forget that, and all they yell about is government taxes going up, and they don't talk about private sector. So my question to you is, everything goes up in one way or another. Government, unfortunately, right at you, it's taxes that hit you. Corporations hide it. They reduce the product quality, all that stuff. So what I'm saying here is, if indeed there was 3% that we didn't spend, what is the percentage, Warren? I think you said it earlier. What's the percentage of surplus projected for this year?
No, it's left over.
Yeah.
It will be 266,000 left over.
And in terms of the recommendations that we're to be at in terms of surplus?
Yeah,
How does that fit?
it will be exactly what you left over from the prior year. So
Exactly.
they're the same 2 years in a row.
Which it looks favorable as we're about to have a bond
I mean,
sale.
I understand what you're saying with the 97%, but you gotta remember, this is still a projection. It's a plan.
Understood.
I mean, we're trying to get to December 31st. I mean, I'm
Right.
sitting right here, we say yes. If gas goes up again, I mean, drop will, tremendously, but it could go up. We're trying to project, 10 months out into advance, right? Well, I don't know what's gonna be in December. And so I'm saying there is some element of speculation in a budget. That's what a budget is. It's not exact. I mean, it's not like the pension bill where you get a bill
Right.
and it's exactly what you're paying. You're trying to project what something is going to be.
I
understand.
prepare 4 budgets every year, okay, at work for 10 years. I understand the process, but I'm still saying here that $96 per household is a lot.
Okay,
Well, I'm
so,
not, that's another argument. We're arguing a projection and
I
appropriation.
understand that, but I'm trying to lower that 96 by going through each of these figures.
right,
They are related, obviously.
so
So-
if this is at 22,000, do you wanna take it down $1,000 and bring it down to 23?
Well, I'll be very upfront with you, okay? I would like to, I'd knock $1,000 off a lot of these items, yeah.
Okay,
I really would. I know we're on page 4 or whatever, and
well,
I haven't said
that's
that.
fine, I mean, for me, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no problem doing this.
Right.
I mean, I'm open.
So, yeah, I mean, where would you want to start?
With utilities?
With utilities?
Where we're at?
Bill, where are you gonna be if you have an emergency of some sort? I don't have any money left over to do anything with. I mean,
understand.
you have the same reaction we did in the committee when we go through this and we look at these numbers and you see 1,000 here, 1,000 there, and sometimes it makes a lot of sense to do that. I think you're right. But sometimes, are you gonna come down to the penny on a budget?
No.
Never.
No.
Just,
But I understand what you're saying, Mike, Councilman Martin, and I don't disagree with you, but I still am going to continue to fight that fight. And I'm gonna say that 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here does add up.
Agree,
And if
that's
we-
why
if
we
we-
fight
and if
over
we-
$50 and
if we
$200,
redu-
they know.
And if we reduce a point, we reduce a point, and I would like to try to reduce a point.
okay, so maybe we need to reduce, I'm trying to get a sense here where we're going. I mean, maybe we need to reduce a little bit more, but I'm just saying that please just keep in mind that if we have no fat at all, none,
Understood.
and we got a little bit of
100%.
an
But what's-
emergency
To
here.
last year.
What's 3% of our total budget?
266.
260,000. So we're not there yet. I understand. But yes, Lou, to answer your question, yes.
And just to speak to budgets being tight or whatnot, for example, with the roof issue last year, $37,000. Because the budget was tight, there was no chance at a transfer for that. So that has now hit us this year. This is when we pay for it. That is something to just think about. And the other thing with fund balance, to speak about that a little bit, yes, I 100% agree with you, and I agree with Councilman Petrozelli. We're coming to this meeting open-minded. I'm ready with my pen over here, making the cuts with you. I'm right there. But the fact that a fund balance does come back to you in 2 years later, it's not like this money goes away or goes to something else, or, it comes back and it supports that budget in the sense of fund balance. So it's not so terrible to have 3% go back. To have 10% go back, I think is pretty bad.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. To get yourself so close where you're within less than 1%, I mean, that's very, very risky. So
Agreed.
it's just a balancing act, but let's be open-minded, and I'm okay with cutting a little more.
One other thing I want to bring up, it's kind of just hit me now. I think I was driving down West Street off of South I mean, 1 year after the real bad winter of last year, what we had Maple Street that cost, what, $14,000 to get fixed?
Right.
And we had to fix it. Drive down West Street, just go take a look at that. We have the same conditions that are happening over there right now that happened on Maple. We have, the blacktop is breaking and we have mud coming up out of the ground again. So that could be a street that very easily could need another $10,000 emergency repair that we're not fat enough for, you know? So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and just also, let's not engage in hyperbole or straw man arguments. I don't think Councilman Neerstedt, and correct me if I'm wrong, was advocating cutting everything out of the budget.
No, but I'm just saying,
But just
there's
bringing,
nothing
excuse
there.
me, but bringing down a $96 tax increase proportionally or substantially, that's something that I would totally support, but I'm not in any way advocating, and if Councilman Neerstedt were, I wouldn't support it, cutting down all of the, all of it. So let's not jump to hyperbole, a few $1,000s here and there. And when we say cuts, if that line item's gonna be cut and then another one's gonna get inflated, then don't even bother. But if it's gonna come off the tax increase, then yeah, I'm all for it.
Well, I think it's just realism. I mean, when we sit there at a finance meeting, if we cut something and we're happy, but then we have to pay something additional, like $7,500 for signs, you sort of say, oh, that's too bad, but you don't not do it. You just have to budget appropriately, so I don't look at it exactly the same. But anyway, I'm good with keep it going.
So where we're gonna.
So Councilman Pedroselli, then, yeah, I would appreciate if the committee went back and, like I say, I understand what Councilman Martin is saying, not getting penny here, but, if you can cut 1,000 here, cut 1,000 there, that would be appreciated. The utilities, you probably cut 1,000 there.
Okay.
The telephone, you could probably cut 1,000 there. Gasoline and fuel, I understand what Warren is saying, I don't know if you want to or not.
I have a strong opinion on this one. I think we're being far too conservative with this at $70,000. I think we underspent last year by about $5,500, and that really didn't capture, really any of the massive reduction that we have. Again, no one knows what the future holds, but I think just based on even a substantial increase from what fuel costs now, I think we're being far too conservative with that. I would support cutting that 10,000.
No way.
So you're
Gasoline just went up about 13
gasoline
cents a gallon.
$10,000?
Yeah, because I mean, that's $67,000. We underspent when fuel was substantially higher. And now fuel has declined tremendously. And my point is, we still have enough flexibility in the $70,000 figure.
So then
So I
last,
think that this is
Yeah, but
far
we
too
don't know what's
conservative.
gonna happen this year.
I just said that. No one knows what's gonna be happening, but I think we're being too conservative with it. You have to make a projection one way or the other, right? Right, I just think $70,000 is too aggressive.
And what if you make your projection the wrong way?
Then you go ahead and you get it from somewhere else on the budget.
Not necessarily, you cannot transfer until November.
Yeah, then you go ahead and trade from somewhere in November.
But what if you've already expended it in September? What are you doing then?
I don't know, based on 2012,
Well, that's when you have the
2013,
emergency, you have the.
So we'd have to do an emergency
That's-
because we don't have enough
that's
money for
That's what
gas.
you did last year, you had the emergency.
With the roof.
With the roof and the sides,
About the
Right.
you do have the mechanism.
Emergencies are not good.
Emergency appropriations have to be approved by the Division of Local Government Services, and they frowned on them. The last time we had 2 of them, they called me up on the telephone, I sent them the paperwork, and they asked me, why do we have 2 emergency appropriations? What are we doing with our budget that we had 2 emergency appropriations? Of course, I explained that the truck hit the light, we were getting that money back that we had appropriated
Right.
to an emergency, and I explained the roof. And they asked me, didn't you project your roof? Didn't you? I said, no, we didn't. They almost didn't approve that one because they felt that we should have known that our roof, and they're right, was in that condition, and that, 5, 10 years ago, it would have been easier to appropriate that than these budgets are so extremely tight. You can move money around later on in the year, in the beginning of the year, but I just want to caution you on emergency appropriations. They have to be approved, and if they're not, the auditor maybe could share with me, what would happen if you submitted an emergency appropriation to Trenton and they didn't approve it?
You couldn't spend the money then.
Well, in an emergency, we've already spent the money.
Well, no, you can't spend it for, how do you do that?
When you pass a resolution, an emergency appropriation,
Then it's not effective until they approve it.
once the council passed that resolution here,
Well, no, they
I think
wouldn't deny, what they would do, you'd raise it inside a cap instead of outside a cap, that's all they can do
Okay.
to you.
So
I
there
mean,
you
they
go.
can't, once
But
council
isn't it-
passes it, the emergency is passed.
Isn't it a negative on best practices though? Doesn't it not go
Yes.
somewhere on back
Yes.
best practices, which ties to state aid? You mess up enough, you get slapped somewhere else, so
They'll take away state aid.
that's
If you
awful.
can't answer all your best practices questions correctly, it starts a reduction.
Well, it should be, in other words, they want it to be a true emergency, not
Right,
budget
no,
oversight. In other words,
Exactly.
you know something's happening, it's supposed to be unforeseen at the time of the adoption of the budget. If actually going down a line items, they don't consider that an emergency, they just consider it bad budgeting.
exactly.
Lower
That's why they
I
question.
still think it's too aggressive.
Okay, so if we-
I think it would be
You're
a
looking at-
mistake to,
10,000, yeah. If we're
Well,
looking
10,000
at,
may be too much, but I agree with Jim's line of thinking here. Look at what we spent in 2012. Okay, gas was
Sandy,
$4,
is that accurate?
four bucks a gallon.
If anybody's noticed over the past few weeks, gas is going back up.
Yeah.
I just spent 14 cents more gallon at least.
Over the past 4 weeks, it's up 50 cents.
and in the summer it'll go
all
up.
right, so we're at
It has to
72,
stay where it's
we're
at.
at 72.5 for what we budgeted for 2014. We came in at 67, okay? I don't see 10,000 there.
I don't either, but I.
Can we come to a consensus if we're gonna cut it, please?
I maybe see, you wanna do maybe like 1 or 2? I think
Sure,
I'm good with that.
I'll go for 68.
68,
Okay.
deal.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow. I think that's a mistake.
It might be.
And, you know, of course, here's the other issue, but it is one of those issues, which is fine. But when gas prices rise, next year's budget, you may see an increase
Sure.
of $5,000 and you'll have to deal with that, so,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
it
We have a consensus, let's continue, please.
Okay.
Street lighting.
Street lighting. We budgeted 92, we spent 85 last year.
And Lou, isn't that kind of predetermined with PSE&G?
Yeah, I mean, they
So-
could have a rate increase and you have to be prepared for it.
So would it keep it at 92 then, or what? No?
How about 90?
That's,
Okay,
sounds
yeah.
good.
All right.
unless, if at any point the VA or CFO want to step in,
Yeah.
if you feel we're out of line with a particular item, like this bill, for example, street lighting.
If you look at what it cost the past 2 years, 13, 14, is 85, 15, 85, 18, I mean, I think
91 the prior year,
90 were, yeah, but okay, the electric rates were higher also.
Well, that dropped down because they did that street lighting change.
That's correct too, right? Good point. Thank you. If everybody's comfortable with 90, that sounds good. Okay, continue on, please.
Okay, sewer systems, it's exactly the same. First aid, that's 9,000, that's what they get.
And that's been 9,000 for a very long time. I remember I asked Sandy about this, just FYI. I mean, and that's the function of, you know, all these big line items of the budget, things like this suffer. So, I mean, again, I don't like advocating spending increases, but we haven't increased that in a real long time, and I know that they're hurting over there.
It's true. Well, it's a tricky one as well, because technically we do a agreement with them, right? It's an agreement that they'll provide this service to us and we pay them $9,000. This service right now, and anyone that volunteers with EMS, I 1,000% support you. I went to one CPR class. That's as far as I can get, I'll tell you. I give them so much credit, and it's so sad, the state of volunteerism, especially for EMS squads. I know they're suffering everywhere. However, about 7% of the calls are being answered right now.
7%.
So we're paying this money, and that is the response. So I'm not advocating cutting it, but I'm also saying to add more money there without any kind of true understanding that that service will go up. I have a tough time doing that one.
Yeah, I
As
don't
much as
think-
I would love to, I just don't think it's
I
practical.
don't think throwing more money is gonna create more volunteers.
No.
No.
Okay.
Continue on.
Okay, dog regulation. All right, taxes raised.
I hate to ask this question since I have a dog. And I paid the bill, but I forget, what does a dog license cost?
17, 20.
Yeah, unless, you know, you're late, then.
Then
That's
it's 20,
good.
then it's 22, 20.
And the state gets $1.20 of that for license.
And I mean, no. I pay it, so I hate to ask, but does the state set a max on what you can charge for
I
dog
believe
license?
so, yeah.
We're at the max.
We're at the max, that's all it has.
Okay.
Thank you.
Taxes raised?
Taxes raised, that's the refunds on the tax appeals.
And this was recommended that we do not cut this.
Actually,
Right.
the attorney recommended or requested that we put 40,000 in that line based on current.
Talk about washing out a lot
Yeah.
of efforts.
It was good
I'm
stuff.
okay leaving it at 29, let's keep going.
Okay. But now, let's just say, instead of 20, we spent 40.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? I'm just saying.
You're
I
right.
hear you.
You're absolutely
That's
right.
where,
That's where the cleaning comes in.
That's where what's
Turn
that?
off your lights and your cell phone.
And
That's where the excess in the middle lines come from.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
they're cutting.
Statutory.
Okay, statutory expenditures.
For the public, I know there's not many people here, but for the public, can someone explain what statutory expenditures are?
Sandy,
there's two components there, Social Security and Medicare.
right, okay.
And that is strictly, I think, just a,
Federal.
just the 2%,
Okay.
flat increase. We were pretty much on the money with that last year.
Very good.
Okay, public employees retirement system.
That's up.
Any
That's
questions?
Oh, that's-
Yeah, modest, a lot of it.
Modest,
no.
modest.
And we're not even, we're just a little bit above what we were paying in 2012.
Yeah.
Right. Modest, but between that and police and fire, you're still at a tax point basically, so it's $10.
Police and fire retirement system, that's up 307 to 315. State unemployment insurance. Financial administration.
I'm sorry, you say, I forget, financial administration is,
Audit fees.
Yeah,
I
Ring
thought,
Trust
I thought the gentleman sitting there, right, I thought that, I wanted to make sure.
Can we cut that?
Well, gentlemen?
Right,
Much
50%?
more than that.
Good night.
And good luck.
Good night.
That's about the reporter, right?
Yeah, well, I think since we're bringing it up, I mean, the point should be made, that you have very modest increases.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, and I've always thought that.
And great service, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Although I wish that
I
computer would
bounced
always
on
spit out
back
a
to
zero,
Bill.
but
All right, salary adjustment.
this is
So what is that?
raises, we should talk about this here, right? Talk about raises here?
That's what it is, sure.
Sure.
That's what it is.
Yep. So, Councilman Petrozelli brought this up earlier. The Finance Committee has a recommendation for the council, but we're definitely very interested to hear everyone else's thoughts because we, again, are, open-minded as always, so.
You guys need to
Council,
know-
you indicated a percentage?
Yes,
Go ahead.
for the, hang on, I'll find it. Okay, Finance Committee's recommendation for non-union raises of 1.75% for the 4 protected workers and 1% for non-protected workers, for a total amount of $8,300.
Yeah, I think that,
1.75 for non-protected, and what was it for protected?
No, it was 1.75 for
One per-
protected, 1% for non-protected. And it's roughly 4,200 each category, so that's
Okay.
equals 8,300. And then this is where you also have the assistant administrator for 4,500.
Yeah.
That's how we get basically $13,000. So that's the math there.
What was the, hate to phrase it this way, but what was the rank and file? Do we have rank and file here? Increase? The salary adjustments that you just mentioned are for, how many protected?
4.
Four.
How many non-protected?
Let me count. I have 8 and an hourly on my list here. Anybody else have thoughts on this one?
What was the percent last year?
is it 175 for all? I believe it was 175 for all, which was in line with both union contracts at the time, right? Coincidentally.
The only union contract we don't have signed right now is police.
DPW's at 1.75.
That's where it's headed. DPW is at 1.75. How many more years on that contract?
This is it.
This is it. So really, I mean, it's all contracted, right? Except for the one we just talked about the other night.
Assistant
The
administrator.
assistant administrator, except for the assistant administrator, they're all sword over them, right?
No. These
No.
are non-union, but some are
They're
protected,
non-union.
some are not protected by the state.
I mean, our theory behind this, I mean, for me, and, you know, you bring up that, you know, these employees are on a tier 4, you know, for the health insurance and payment and stuff like that. Well, as that goes up and their salaries stay flat or don't get an increase, then they're actually making less money.
So I know that because I've been in that for the
Yeah.
past X years, so I'm very familiar with it. Yeah, we've all been in it.
So, if I'm looking across this sheet in 2013, we gave no raises?
No, we did.
It was not in this area, I don't believe, unless it was transferred out.
It gets transferred out to
Was
the
that the
other salary
transfer out?
lines.
Okay.
You don't spend it out of this line, you transfer it to the other salary lines.
Right, that was the other part.
Oh.
I apologize if, you know, I may ask a silly question, I apologize, okay? I know you said about the first one I've asked, right? Police right now, okay, within their contract, not the one that we're in discussion about, okay, but what is their salary increase for?
For 14, you're asking what their salary increase was.
Yeah,
It was 1.75.
1.75. For non-protected, for 14,
1.75,
1.75.
and non-protected received the same.
So am I right to say this is actually a reduction from 13, from 14?
In percentage, but
In
it's still a
percentage,
raise over
right,
their
yeah,
salary, so.
yeah. Okay.
Anyone else have any comments on this?
Yeah, I just want to say that, I mean, the fact that we're having this discussion, the finance committee has this latitude, is for the repeal of the best ordinance that Councilman Petrozelli and I voted for. This is exactly what I envisioned, is that we would be able to struggle over this. It used to be in Garwood that non-union employees were given the higher of whatever union contract they signed. And that was automatic. We're still in the cycle of getting raises every year in Garwood, but it is substantially less than it used to be. And I think that this is fabulous, and this is exactly what I envisioned, is that we would go through and parse this out. Whereas before, there was some ordinance that nobody had ever read that was going ahead and automatically increasing it. And don't you know, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer, there was nothing we could do about it. So I'm inclined to defer to the committee's recommendation, and I'm ecstatic that the committee and the larger council actually has this choice.
Thank you. So we'll bring it up next time.
I think everybody's good with it, that's what I'm taking from this, I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't call Councilwoman
No, I'm
Tarantino.
good with it.
Okay.
It's 1.75 and one.
And one.
And one, yeah, I'm good with that.
Sanitation fees. Take it back.
And just so it does become an issue, I apologize, Councilman Petrozelli, I apologize, but, okay, Bill. The mayor just said something to me, which I think probably should be public, okay? That nobody up here, okay, there is no increase in council or mayor's salaries here.
Yeah.
So let's make that, you know, public, okay? There's no increase here for any of us, before anybody says something. Just hours, H-O-U-R-S, right,
Yeah.
right.
There's a big increase in those.
Yes.
Okay, retirement and sick pay benefits?
What, did we skip?
No,
We didn't talk sanitation.
You mentioned it.
I mentioned,
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
you did.
I apologize.
want to talk about it?
No, I'm good.
Just a function of you.
It's a
Based on
function of what
tipping
they,
fees,
yeah, it's a
no?
function of tipping fees.
Right, it's just a function.
Okay, Union County Kids Recreation Trust Fund Program.
So that's match.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring this one up, since, I know I'm on the committee, so, but I just realized this earlier. Right now, we have 20,000 for that, and it's a match. But because we just spent, I'm using round numbers, 10,000 on this fence, can we use that on this, like, to reduce this line?
Yeah.
Make that count for
I'm
our
gonna charge the
payment?
fence to the project,
Yeah,
Okay.
and
absolutely.
so you can take that match, half of that match out. Because
So-
I can't charge the rest of the stuff we're gonna buy. When I wrote the grant, I put the fence in it, I put,
Tables and chairs.
tables,
Right,
chairs,
right.
refrigerator. Those things are not permanent fixtures, so you can't charge the bond, but the fence is, so you can. So
Okay.
I'm going to,
Great.
So we can reduce this 10,000.
yes.
This is big.
This is big.
Guys, we are at over a tax point, which is over $10.
So then Tina, this resolves that question I told you about the other day then?
Now,
So that 11.8 is gonna go into the bond?
The fence is gonna be charged to the bond, correct?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, so did I just hear we're reducing this 20 to 10?
Correct.
Oh, that's excellent.
Give your pencil. Sorry.
Red or?
I'm using 10.
Okay.
Can't change it back.
Can't change it.
You have, okay, next we have library. That's what it is.
Well, it is what it is, but we're actually, are we increasing the amount that we're asking the library to pay?
Yes.
The in-kind fees did go
Yeah,
up.
so I think that should be mentioned.
But we received a list of their in-kind fees, didn't we?
Yes,
Yes.
It should go up, though.
yes, but I think,
Yes, it went from 46,000 to 49.
right, and I think that's important to indicate,
We took funds away.
what's the word when you're putting everything out on the table there? I'd like to state that for the record, my wife is the president of the library. She's not real happy on this side. I heard that the other day, because the council is taking 5,000 out.
And do you think it's happening in my household?
It's not happy in your household either. So I would just like to state for the record that we are increasing the amount of in-kind fees that the library is paying, and we're cutting, that, so just like to state that for the record.
And I just wanna mention that I will formally send the library a letter after you make it official, I couldn't do it before you did. So I know they were gonna see it, no matter what it is.
Yes,
And I just want you to know that that's why I did it.
Okay.
It's not really official to be making it.
Absolutely.
Oh, so they don't know about it, or
They know.
I can't notify them
No,
until
but I
you,
mean, but they do.
They
they
know.
do, but they don't.
She knows about it.
And I can't send official correspondence of something that is just proposed.
You are correct.
Yeah. So I do that if they didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, they did.
I couldn't do anything about it.
Councilman?
Okay, next up is municipal court. I think that's pretty tight. That's what it
We have a new judge, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Same salary?
Yes, yes.
is. All right, next up is our large increase from Rolling Valley.
Not large in some instances, though historically not that large at all. And as a matter of fact, it's below what we were paying several years ago. And it's decreased in absolute dollars in the budget, in relative dollars and inflation adjusted dollars. I dare you find any item in this budget that you could say that about. Our VSA has been a whipping boy for our overspending. This has become a cheaper utility, a more efficient utility, and a less volatile cost in our budget every year. We cherry pick the increases, and we go ahead and we blame them. And I just don't think that that's right.
I have to jump in here. I don't know the term, whipping boy, was that the term? But the RVSA bill for the past 3 years has gone up substantially. I understand all the numbers you're saying, and that's very, very true. But my biggest point from this is, if we separated sewer, like so many other towns do, Cranford, Clark, I believe Westfield as well, our neighboring communities, the taxpayers would be getting a larger bill by $45.
Right.
So whether they're paying it out of the left pocket or the right pocket, they are getting that increase. So I think it's just fair to point this out, that this council, by keeping it in the bill, is willing to come out and say, sorry, the tax increase is X. really would be less if we didn't have this, like so many other towns played that game, but we continue not to play that game.
Right, and that tax increase is $45. That's a very
So
large
it's-
number.
Right, it's great they're more efficient, I thank them when they're here, I appreciate all they do to cut their spending and use their fund balance when they see appropriate, I appreciate that, but the bottom line is, our residents would be getting that bill, and they'd be getting that increase this year, one way or the other, at least our way, they can write it off.
That's the bottom line.
And Jim, I probably just couldn't follow the thinking. I just couldn't follow. I mean, in terms of comparison of years, I mean, you know, you go from 2012 to 2013, it's a $60,000 increase. You go from 13 to 14, it's a $50,000 increase. You go from 14 to 15, it's an $80,000 increase.
Were you at the meeting the other night?
Yes, I absolutely was. I'm not.
Did you pay attention to what they were saying?
Yes, I absolutely did.
All right, well, how much were we paying in 2008? We were paying 11.7% of our budget, we were paying $800,000. Find me one other line item in this budget where we're paying less than we paid in 2008. One.
You have to also understand the capital improvements that we have paid, you and I and everyone else has paid for, that have resulted in some of those decreases. All that I'm saying is that that's an $80,000 nut that we have to cover in 1 year. We don't, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? The total increase, what's the total increase in the budget? How do we phrase this, get the answer I want?
From last year to this year?
This is an increase of $80,000 in this one line,
Right.
right? What's the net increase in the other lines? Am I asking that question right?
Basically, I think what you're trying to say is, originally, before we made cuts, our $96 equates to a total dollar amount of money over last year's budget, which I'm guessing is in the ballpark of $180,000.
Well, no.
A little less.
The tax levy from year to year is up $168,000.
Right.
So the three line items that you have, the big three line items, the Rollway Valley is 82, debt service is 33, and the emergency is 37. That's
What
150.
was the last one?
The emergency is 37,000.
The roof?
Okay, and mention that second one again?
The debt service is 33.
Debt service, that's the first time we've heard that.
And
Isn't that interesting?
And 82,000 for the Rollway Valley. So it's 153 out of the 160.
Isn't that interesting? So we cherry pick from this budget the increases we don't like, but this is the first time that we've heard, on my sheet, it's a $43,000 increase in budget for debt service.
No, not 43.
It says 43 here, 299 to, it's 289 that was actually expended. Oh, you're talking about from the budget.
Budget to budget.
From the budget, okay. So it's $33,000, so almost as much as the roof, right? But this is the first time we've heard about that. That Garwood's debt service has gone up $33,000. We don't talk about
And
it.
it's actually, in fact,
Let's keep this conversation
I'm
simple,
sorry, but it's
people.
not the first time that this has come up, because these
Well, no, I made the
gentlemen
presentation.
just
of
came in
1.8
recently with a
cents.
presentation. I can turn and ask you a question that I feel you inappropriately asked Council President Neerset, but I won't ask you that question. But they definitely did talk about it. We know what it's going up this year, we know what it's projected to go up next year, and the next, how many years out, 15, 15?
It flattens out, it's like,
It flattens out.
it's 2/10 of a penny.
But the point is, we see all that down the line, so we have brought this up before.
Just not a lot.
We haven't done it.
And by the way, yeah, we didn't get to
We're
it.
I don't
not,
think
Like,
we
we're not even there yet, but
I was just, he was asking a question, the tax levy is up is 166,000 from year to year, and there's really three big components that make it.
Yeah, and I do have to
That's
say
all. I
something
mean,
here.
just-
I don't say this often, I know, but you're right, Jim. You've got to look at that line and be concerned about it. I'm not saying in any other way but to be concerned about it. In the same way that we need to be concerned about our own Visas and MasterCards and whatever, when we see that monthly net that we pay, how much interest we pay, it's the same thing. If we didn't have those credit cards, we'd be saving ourselves a hell of a lot of money. So yes, I agree with Jim that we need to be concerned about that. As a Republican, I am concerned about that, as I'm sure everybody else is concerned about that. But I do have to say that, again, to be completely fair about this, you know, we can't sort of shove that aside too much in the discussion.
right. But one other point to follow that up, that $20 per home, I'm sorry, no, $20,000, $30,000?
The net increase is 1.8 cents.
Okay, so about $20 a home. Okay, 18, I guess.
Right.
Anyway, basically, that is to cover us from using that credit card since 2004. So this is what has happened over years. It's not this one council or
Right.
this one individual. This is council since 2004, so just to put things in perspective.
Oh,
But
sure, no.
I agree, this is something that we should definitely always keep on the radar, definitely keep an eye out for, and anyway, that's all I have to say. We're gonna
Right,
keep it
that's, I
going.
just wanted to make that exact.
And I just want to close the loop on this, that you got to remember, right? So we go ahead and we say, oh, RVSA, you go up this much. When we know historically it's been more volatile, right? What we do is we spend up to the hilt, knowing that we have these volatile items out there. We dodged some huge bullets. There was a 22% increase in pension contributions the year I was finance chair. 22%. We dodged some huge bullets from the modest reforms made in Trenton. So my point being, when you go ahead and you jack up the town's debt and you spend to the hilt, and then you go, oh, these things that were historically volatile, they're still volatile. Less so, but still volatile. I'm surprised. That's disingenuous. That's disingenuous, and I'm going to point it out. And again, in the memo, what we say is the two biggest challenges are increase of $86,000 of the RVSA and $40,000 for the roof, which is an estimate. It was a little bit lower than that. If I had written this memo, I would have said the $33,000 increase in debt, and the borough's increase in debt. So these are political statements, and I just want to make sure that people know that. We got to have full disclosure, and that's why we have this in public.
Okay,
And I'm
well,
sure yours is too, but I could ask you which hat you're wearing right now.
You didn't write it because you're not
Chair.
finance.
Let's keep it on the
You
fire.
didn't write it because you're not the finance chair, and we're disclosing it now.
It's good stuff.
Did we cover the capital improvement line
Yeah,
yet?
we
Did
are,
cover-
we're still on RVSA. I assume we're all done with that one?
Yeah.
Continue on, please. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I gotta say one thing.
Okay.
Warren, to close out on this discussion around the debt, I mean, in your professional estimation, how would you characterize the financial health of Garwood?
Well, no, you're a good fighter. Look, I think Tara hit the nail on the head. This goes back, I thought it goes back to 2002, 2003, it's the first time we're bonding. I mean, this is the first year. You're not gonna bond $2.7 million projects that you did over 11 or 12 years and not cost you anything. This happens to be the budget year it's going to hit. I mean, but it's $18 a household because that's the net increase. You know what I mean? So there's nothing you can do about that. You have all the capital. I mean, you have the, what was it, the ambulance or the dump truck or the fire, I mean, and the road improvements. I mean, you do have assets that are gonna have useful lives over a good number of years that you already bought and paid for. Now, this is just the cash to pay it back. I mean, you're not in any kind of financial jeopardy with this.
Thank
I
you.
mean, next year it flattens out and flattens out even more after that. I mean,
Okay.
it's the way to manage it. I mean, the time you look at the debt, and I think what Jim is saying, is not 10 years, 11 years down the road. It's every time you do a capital project. You know, I mean, you have to do the roads in 15 and see what you're gonna get. That's when the credit card is actually being authorized at that
Right.
point in time. It's not 10 years from now. It's already done back. You just have to be sitting in these seats because somebody back then authorized it. You're kind of getting, I don't say use the word stuck, but you have to provide for it.
And that's why we have
You know
to be
what I mean?
mindful.
But you have to
and-
be mindful when you're doing it in
While you're doing
2015,
it.
what's going on. That's what you have to look for. Somewhere down the line, it's very easy to pass a bond ordinance because it doesn't cost you anything in that year. You authorize to spend the money, but it's somewhere down the line, you don't get that, so whatever you're doing, that's what you're
But the
doing.
thing I wanted to point out.
But they're capital projects, I mean, they do
Okay.
last a good number of years, you can't put those sometimes in the budget, you're not gonna put $100,000,
Exactly.
ambulance or dump truck or something in here, there's no way you're gonna do it, you're not gonna put a nickel, because you're arguing over 9 cents, you're not gonna put a nickel for that every year, it's just gonna be too much.
Thanks, Warren. Appreciate it.
I just wanted to point out, and I think the other thing that's not disclosed on here, it's very difficult to disclose the federal budget and in general, but I know Councilwoman Tarantino, Councilman Petrozelli brought this up several times. And Don Guariello didn't seem too excited about my idea of taking the linear miles and dividing by 30. My sense is that our infrastructure in this borough there's a ticking time bomb, that we need a substantial increase in the road paving that we're doing. For Don Guariello to say, since I've been working here on Garwood, 30 some odd years, there are some roads I've never paved, and you're talking about West Street and things like that. Before the athletic field hit, I was actually gonna support $1 to $2 million bond to repave the borough, because I thought that was at least how much we were behind. And then, that's back when it wasn't supposed to cost anything. But now we've spent all that debt, in the same context of a borough that has really got a backlog of road paving in particular, and that's only just the other thing. We waited till the boiler broke. We knew that was coming. We have some really old capital projects here that we've said, hey, athletic field complex, and these other things we're gonna have to deal with later. And I fear how that's gonna shake out, because my sense was before we bonded for that, that we had substantial debt that we should have taken on to upgrade the infrastructure of this borough. That's my opinion.
Point well taken. So we continue on.
Moving on. Capital Improvement Fund, 15,000.
So, then what's the total in that we have there now? We have this 15,000?
Total in the capital account, she's asking. I'll let you have that one.
It'll be 253,000.
Take off your time.
Okay.
Okay, debt service. Okay, covered that. Communities grant.
We can get that grant yet?
No, because we didn't get that yet.
Okay, so I know we get something every year.
Yeah, that's the same thing with the, oh no, all right, I guess we got it since then.
Well, and I apologize, I mean, it's a grant, it's a cost, so that's just a cost before we get the grant money back.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, yes.
Yes, okay.
So, the matching, you have the
Right.
appropriation and revenue.
Yeah, it's not a match.
We don't have, no.
It-
Go ahead.
Clean Communities, yeah.
Well, Clean Communities isn't a matching grant, Clean Communities
I didn't
is.
match in your budget.
Right,
There's
right.
no tax impact.
Right.
Thank you.
Recycling tonnage grant. We know what that is now, we didn't know that the last time. Body armor replacement fund?
Police, I assume?
Yes. Municipal Alliance, she was just in here at the last meeting.
Right. Now, just a question, I mean, obviously, this is not the first time we've had a municipal alliance. Why aren't the budget lines on there for previous years?
Yeah, I can give you that info, it just wasn't.
All right, if you can, yeah, that'd be great, that'd be great, thank you.
This is the new format, so it's.
Okay.
Okay, we have LoSAP, and that's an increase in this budget from what we recommended of $600.
Yeah, I think that that's fabulous, and that's part of the reason I supported increasing it, but not putting in an automatic escalator. Because again, I think that this is something that the finance committee and then the council as a whole should struggle with every year and see if we can afford it. I'm okay with that once in a while, skipping it for other things, but I support increasing that after we basically brought it up to date for almost a 15-year
Right.
last year. I think that's a good thing.
Okay.
Okay, deferred charges, future taxation.
The old roof.
Yeah. Emergency operation of the roof, and reserve for uncollected taxes.
Warren, what was our percentage last year? Our collected taxes percentage for last year?
8%.
Bill,
So it was about 2%, 2.8%.
What was around 96, 97%?
I think we.
98.46.
Thank you.
98.46, wow.
The year before, I think it was 97.
Yeah.
So did we make real changes here? You
Yes.
had that thing,
Yes.
had a little program?
Can I have jail my number?
Yeah, I have 16,000.
In cuts?
Vote.
I have 21.
Well, you know what, did you decide to do the police overtime?
We did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
5,000.
Yeah. Is that correct, Councilman?
Yeah.
My guess is 85. Want to play auditor sometimes, you know, finance
Well,
meetings?
you can play order next meeting. How's that?
Can I ask a couple of, I don't want to interrupt you, we're good, the numbers are confirmed now. A couple of revenue questions, this might be silly, okay, but, you know, it's things add up. I know we had a fee last year, and this, I don't know where these items are on revenue, because revenue obviously isn't broken out as much as the costs are. So, just silly questions, it's nickel and diming, but on revenue, I kind of like to do it. Last year, we I believe it was an ordinance where we raised, we were now charging the cost for dumpsters. And I indicated last year that I thought that fee was ridiculously low. I think we should increase that fee. I know it's nickel and diming, okay, but it's revenue. Does anybody remember, I don't, I apologize, what we were charging for?
It was minimal, I
For what?
think it was
For
like
dumpsters.
$5 or $10.
$5 or $10.
$5.
It was that low, and
Yeah, I thought five.
when dumpsters end up in streets, they do cause problems. You know, and I'll be honest with you, these are nickel and diming, and I apologize, but it's revenue, so I'd like to talk about it. I think we as a council should talk about increasing that, as I asked last year. Street openings, do we know what we charge?
I can tell you what you collected, I don't, just give me a chance.
Because utilities are set amount, right? New Jersey American Water, whoever else has to go and open up the street. And I know in the long run, in the big picture, those costs only get reflected in each of our electric and water bills, but at the same time, if we haven't increased street opening fees in a while, I think we should look at that to see if the revenue can be increased. So we've got the dumpster fees, we've got street opening. I think I asked about dog license before, that's as much as it can be, right?
Yes.
Right, that's it.
All right. Health, I mentioned earlier, we should be getting a plan review fee increase.
Bill, if we can just go back to the dumpster fee,
Absolutely.
Tina can tell you.
Yeah.
The fee was for the permit to get them in here, just so that we knew that they were having a dumpster.
Right.
If the street got damaged because of the dumpster, that wasn't being paid for by the permit fee.
No, what I'm saying is that you have to understand that when dumpsters are in streets, they cause damage. And so in the long run, if you,
No, but they had to put it on wood, that's one of the reasons why we said
Right.
that. 'cause
right,
it's
but
wood.
what I'm saying is that because I'm in that field, I've seen dumpsters, I've seen damage they do to streets that aren't recognized right away. Now, I'm not saying that the individual homeowner is gonna pay for that at that time. What I'm saying is long-term planning, okay, $5 is nothing.
So, but
And-
you can, with the fee from $5 to $10.
No, what I'm
would
saying
make a
is,
difference?
I said earlier, it's nickel and diming, okay, but in terms of revenue, we obviously have expenses. So one of the ways to increase your revenue is raise taxes. One of the ways is increase fees. All right, so what I was saying was, let's look at these fees. I mean, I don't know offhand, to be frank with you, what we charge for a zoning permit. When was the last time we increased fees for development applications, or for zoning permits, or for, you can't do dog license, but others? When was the last time the police used to actually go around, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, Ann and I noticed it 2 years ago, when we were running, how many dogs, you know, don't have licenses. And maybe I'm, you know, indicating how old I don't want to indicate I am, but, you know, years ago, you know, I've only lived in town here for 26 years, I'm not a native, but police actually used to knock on the door. Does that still happen if you have a dog?
No, because we have a computer now, we have,
Mhm.
back then we
But-
didn't have a computer.
And so are we actually able to check that every dog was registered, licensed last year, is licensed this year?
Yes. And if
Okay.
they don't, we send one notice, and if they don't come and license by the time they get that notice, then they get a summons.
I knew a guy who got a summons on a dead dog.
That's what I was.
Yeah, but they get the notice, and the notice says, if you don't have a dog, if the dog's died, please call my office and we can take it off, and they don't call, and then they get the ticket, and they come in and yell at us with the note in their hand, it says right on there, call, they wouldn't get the ticket.
That is true, when we have several dogs, like,
Also,
me and my mom, we were.
now extending the evening hours is
I have two
Obviously,
follow-up
has been
points.
increase in revenue.
I have two follow-up points, maybe this will help move us along.
Go ahead.
I can offer you something you can increase revenue on if you want to, but you have to act really fast. It's not a lot of revenue. It's liquor license fees. You currently collect $2,000 for consumption, that's where you go out and you can drink there. Retail, you only have one. You can increase consumption from 2,000 to 2,500. You have about 8 or 9 licenses. That's the maximum by state, you can increase it. I think the retail is, you can increase it, I think, another $250, but you only have one. And then you can, I don't think you would, you only have one, the veteran license, the club license, and that's always been at 150, because never, no council has ever increased it. But you only have one of those as well. You would have to do it fast, like, you know, I can tell the attorney to prepare the ordinance if you want, get it introduced and adopted in April, because liquor licenses will go out right at the end of May. So it's
Will
a
that-
couple $1,000s more.
Would we be able to change the budget if we did that?
You can anticipate it if I.
When do you collect the fees?
I collect them in June.
Yeah, but they only collected 1950 last year. I guess
Doesn't have to
they
happen
weren't.
now.
Well, that's the other idea I was having,
Yeah,
should
no,
this go to some kind of committee?
If you increase the ordinance, I think the state will let you do it. Which is-
Yeah, that's what we did
it's
last time.
definite, yeah, it's definite, you're gonna collect those.
That's
I
exactly what
don't
we
think
did last
someone's
time,
not
and I
gonna
had
do a
said
liquor
in the
license
ordinance when I did the
for
budget.
a couple of
but-
times.
That's, would that go to laws and license to discuss? or
The only
is
thing
that-
is, if you're gonna take time to discuss it like that, it's not.
Then it's-
Do we
Then it wouldn't happen
do we
this
need the time, if you're allowed
I
to
mean, if
increase
you
it?
wanna do it, why do you, I mean, just
Yeah,
tell me and
I'll be
do it.
honest with you, I mean, I'd be in favor of doing it.
You know,
Could I have all the numbers again? I
it
apologize.
would be, so it would be an additional $500, and you have about 8 licenses that would get that.
And those are anybody with a liquor license?
Those are consumption licenses, bars, we go out, sit out and drink, restaurants.
Okay.
Consumption means you're drinking it on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Retail means you go there and you buy it, so you have
Okay.
one retail, that's
Okay.
across the street.
So one retail and they would go up?
I think, okay, and I don't remember what their increase is, it might be $12.50 or, yeah, it's about $12.50, you can probably get another 200.
150?
Yeah, that one I don't know off the top of my head what the max you could increase it to, but I know the consumption's 2,500.
And
And
then-
Garwood,
You said there's one entertainment. or-
that's a club license, that's,
Club.
yeah, you wouldn't, I don't think you, that's a,
No.
And that was 150,
yeah,
and that's nightclub.
Yeah, we got.
no, not nightclub, no, that's
Yeah,
club,
that's
like,
Club.
VFW,
Yeah.
Knights of Columbus.
VFW nights.
nightclub. We don't have the VFW anymore, they lost it with
Right.
Club.
All right.
We gotta consider this, we can't just go ahead and do this, we gotta, if we miss the budget year, don't miss the budget year. I'm not just gonna go arbitrarily raise the cost, I'm open to it, but are we gonna go ahead and raise this on our businesses? And then people,
Right,
let's go ahead and see,
We
I'm
would
open
send
to it, but I'm not just gonna be like, yeah, let's do it.
I agree, I mean, here's the thing, if it's adding $2,000 in revenue, right?
A little more than that.
A little more?
8 times 5.
4,000, okay, $4,000 is basically $2 a home. Right now, I mean, they have the real number, but my estimate's 85, that's 85 versus 83, to rush into something.
We don't have to rush into it.
I don't love it, I'd rather go into laws and license.
Yeah, I think we should do that. We should take a look at all the fees. We should look at the dumpsters and then the health fees.
Okay, we'll do at the next meeting, I'll pass it.
Well, can laws and license meet on this, get all the information and come back? Or when do we have to notify the next?
You don't, I don't think you have to know it by budget time, you can increase fees at any time,
Yes.
it's not,
Yeah.
not anticipate revenue.
Right, so then you don't feel it in your budget this year,
Right.
you feel it next year, so then there's
Yeah,
no point in rushing.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Correct.
Okay, we should just look at this, okay, all right, thank you. Next meeting. Good. Anything else, Council President Lewis? No, thank you.
Any further comments about the budget this evening?
Final question on the athletic field complex, do we have some change orders coming down the pipe? Have we gotten an estimate of those, do we know order of magnitude? Is it gonna be like around 10,000, 100,000, do we have any?
Oh, if you'd like, I'll speak to you about that.
Okay, because yeah.
You tried it?
Okay. All that being said, I'd like to thank each and every one of the finance committee and also the council members for being here, and our professionals are here this evening. Thank you for being here. And we'll reconvene with a lesser budget at the next meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Wait, they have the number.
Oh. Thank God for computers. Okay.
You do, you have to do that.
Yeah,
It's on
public
the agenda.
Okay.
You have to.
Yeah, if you cut the $21,000, it's 8.5 cents increase. So it's 85. That's on the 96 or like that. 85.
See? Not all I have.
So it brings it down from 94 to 85?
96.
96,
96, 85?
I thank everyone for the painstaking thing we just did. Thanks too.
It's not painful, it's beneficial.
There's no microphones, once
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council? Please step to the microphone and state your full name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Could I just get a repeat of what the total budget was that you now say it's down to? Not in tax levy, but
Brian.
Sorry, I hear you. I can get it later if that's fine.
No, let's get it, let's take that again.
Brian Trusdale, 242nd Avenue.
Thank you.
There were
Warren is lowering his glasses, so he's looking.
Exactly right.
additional reductions of 21,000 and
So it's 7,772.
7,792.
21.
Oh, I don't go up there.
7,772.
Say it again, Warren.
7,772. That's what the $21,000 was.
Anyone else? Okay.
I could, thank you.
Okay, let's make sure the dates are right. The budget workshop meeting for the mayor and council will be held on next Thursday, March the 19th, 2015, in council chambers at 7 p.m. The regular meeting of the mayor and council will be held on Tuesday, March 24th, 2015, in council chambers at 7:15. Workshop to start at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night.